I was reflecting a few minutes ago on the death of the Pope, and indeed the death of Her Majesty the late Queen Elizabeth II, and of the fact that yesterday the newspapers recording the Urbi et Orbi blessing by the Pope and his parade around the Vatican Square, the kissing of babies, and the photographs of him meeting J.D. Vance, and the parallels between, you know, J.D. Vance seems to have been no better for the Pope's health than Liz Truss was for the Queen's, and of course we know what happened to Liz Truss. After 49 days, she was proven to be as ridiculous as we assumed. And J.D. Vance, of course, has the person who looks like a gerbil, what was responsible for this appalling attack on Zelensky. But the Trump administration has demanded the repayment of the hundreds given to Ukraine. But how much is it actually spent? And what do we make of these political voices, especially Trump's, demanding repayment? Perhaps not in dollars, but in minerals. When in fact, what was it now? When the US was attacked by Al Qaeda, I think there was a huge amount of money given. $137 billion was given by over 130 different countries. And since Russia's invasion in February 2022, the US Congress has allocated $182.8 billion in emergency funding, ostensibly for Ukraine and surrounding security needs. But allocation is not expenditure. Of that, $83.4 billion has been spent. $57 billion has been committed, meaning it's contractually set aside, but it's not yet been sent to Ukraine. And around $39.6 billion of that definitely remains uncommitted. And I think $2.7 billion has simply expired. So less than half the total headline figure has actually translated into real cash or equipment, and the money is not all going to Kyiv either. It supports NATO logistics, US troop presence in Europe, American contractors, and various domestic initiatives under the umbrella Operation Atlantic Resolve. Indeed, 71% of this aid, that's $130.7 billion, is military, and not just for Ukraine, but for American operational capacity and readiness in the region. Only 2%, that's £3.6 billion, has been directed to humanitarian efforts, most of which assist refugees rather than rebuilding Ukraine. Now, with Donald Trump, the current president of the US, and he proposed to the current president of Ukraine, Zelensky, that he should repay the United States not in cash, but with access to strategic minerals, lithium, titanium, and rare earths. This land lease too, as it were, draws on the World War II precedent when America lent weapons to allies like Britain and the Soviet Union, but then repayment was suspended until after the war. Ukraine is under no obligation to pay now, but a legal structure exists for repayment with interest, and under Trump that obligation might transform from theoretical to extractive. Is it practical, possibly ethical, debatable, symbolic? Absolutely. It suggests that US foreign policy may tilt from defensive democracy towards transactional extraction, a form of neo-mercantilism in khaki. But, you know, it feels very uncomfortable when you think that money given to the United States was never paid back. It was not a loan. It was a gift by the peoples of the world to America that was in trouble. And that contrast with 2001. After the 9/11 attacks, all those countries contributed aid to the United States, like all the countries contributed aid to France after Notre Dame was burnt. And the irony is inescapable. The US, the world's wealthiest nation, was the beneficiary of global solidarity in a moment of terror. NATO invoked Article 5 for the first and only time. Canadian jets patrolled US skies. Germany and France joined American campaigns in Afghanistan. This was not aid with strings. This was aid rooted in shared values and mutual security. And now the tables have turned, and Ukraine, bombarded and dismembered, is being asked by some American leaders to repay emergency life support with lithium rights. If this is internationalism, it's of a notably colder kind, and the politics the optics, the political optics are stark. Aid to Ukraine accounts for less than 1% of the US federal budget over the period in question, under $183 billion out of $20.1 trillion, and yet it dominates American political theatre. Critics from the populist right frame it as largesse. But by percentage, America spent more helping Britain in 1941 or Afghanistan in 2001 and got less political grief. Why? Because back then there was consensus. Today there's division, and Trump is capitalizing on it. Trump is exploiting that division. And by suggesting repayment, he reframes support for democracy as a business venture. If Ukraine is the client, then what happens when the balance sheets turn red? So yes, America has pledged over $180 billion to Ukraine, but spent less than half of that. And yes, there is talk of repayment, but none of it immediate or agreed. And compared with the aid given to the US post 9/11, Ukraine is asking for survival, not sympathy. The question then is not whether Ukraine owes the US, but whether the US owes the world a consistent vision of its values. One cannot expect things to be bought and sold by the ounce simply because the American president changes and because there's a new wave of nastiness in the air. But as I say, Vance, the parallels with Vance and Liz Truss are striking.